Okay, it looks like everybody's logged in. So, good afternoon, and thank you for joining today's webinar. I have some very exciting news to bring to you today. Some of you have already seen and heard. However, for the rest, we have a brand new version of Altaro VM Backup, which is version 6. Now, today we have a short webinar to give you a bit of information of what's new in version 6. First of all, to introduce myself, my name is Matthew. I'm the head of the technical support department here at Altaro Software. And today I'm going to walk you through a bit of an introduction to version 6. We'll be covering some of the new features, which it entails a bit of information about the installation and deployment of the software, the upgrade process from older versions, and finally the licensing and pricing of the new version. We'll end with a Q&A session. However, feel free to go ahead and post any of your questions throughout the webinar on the questions section in GoToWebinar itself. And I'll do my best to get to those either while we're going through the presentation or at the end of the session during the Q&A section. But again, feel free to post your queries even throughout the presentation itself, and we'll get to them later. So today's session is going to be a quick 30-minute session, so we shouldn't be here too long, but I want to walk you through some of the new things in Altaro software. So firstly, as you might have noticed, we've actually renamed the software to Altaro VM Backup. And the obvious reason for this is that we're now supporting one massive feature which was missed in the previous versions, and that's support for backing up virtual machines on VMware hosts. So version 6 will now allow you to back up virtual machines from both Hyper-V and VMware, all from one central management console. There has been also some changes in the UI, which I'll walk you through in today's session. And just as an overview, we have all the features and functionality from version 5 have been carried forward to version 6. There's been no loss of functionality or features from V5, and we've added some improvements, and these are both available for Hyper-V and VMware, and that includes all of the previous features such as live backups, offsite replication, etc., etc. So let's talk first about the versions of VMware and Hyper-V which we're going to be supporting. Now for Hyper-V, this has remained pretty much the same. So we support Hyper-V hosts which are running 2008 R2 Core, 2008 R2, 2012 R2, 2012, and the core versions of all of these operating systems as well. As you know, in the past we've always been the first or one of the first to support new operating systems, and of course we'll continue to strive to be at that level. Now the new information here is for, of course, VMware hosts. So now that we're supporting backups of VMware hosts themselves, you can back up virtual machines running on hosts which are ESXi 5.0 and upwards. And we also support adding vCenter servers themselves, and those, of course, also need to be 5.0 and upwards. A quick note over here is that the ESXi free version is not supported within our software, and that's because it actually lacks the API calls which are needed to run backups of the VMs. So the paid versions of ESXi 5.0 and vCenter 5.0 up. Okay, so a quick look at the actual application itself. The software has remained pretty much the same from version 5. The UI is the same, however we tied in virtual machines from VMware all into the same console here. And the main feature here, as I'll bring up in my my test server so you can have a look. As you can see, the UI is quite familiar from V5. So this is pretty much a straight upgrade on the V5 to V6 side. There has been very few UI changes, and which I'll go through. However, the first thing that you'll notice is when you go to add a host, you're going to be prompted with different options here to either add Hyper-V, ESXi, or a vCenter server. And it's really as simple as that to start backing up your VMs from VMware as well. So if you have an ESXi or a vCenter server, simply go to add host, choose the vCenter or ESXi, and click Next and go through the rest of the configuration as you would with a Hyper-V host. So everything is done again from one central console. All of the virtual machines from both Hyper-V and VMware can show up in that one central console. And of course, we still have the option for central management of multiple instances of the software too. So a bit more information about the support of guest level operating systems. And of course, all guest operating systems can be backed up with VMware, just like we did with Hyper-V. The additional information here is that if you want to truncate transaction logs of SQL or Exchange inside the VM, we have catered for that as well. So in the case of VMware hosts, and you want to run an SQL or Exchange backup of a virtual machine, and you want to also truncate the transaction logs, then we have now the ability to deploy a guest agent inside these particular VMs running SQL and Exchange. And you can do that through the new VSS settings tab in the software itself, which I'm going to show you just now. So you head over to Setup and then VSS settings. You'll be able to see the new option called Truncate Logs. Now this is disabled by default. However, you can simply tick the box next to any VMware virtual machine that you want to truncate logs from, and this will deploy the guest agent inside that particular VM. And that will allow you to truncate transaction logs of Exchange and SQL at the time of backup. Again, this is only required for SQL and Exchange VMs. All the other VMs do not need this guest agent to be installed and are fully happy being backed up agentless, just as we do with Hyper-V. So with the introduction of VMware comes a bit of a query as to where we're going to be installing Altaro itself. So the tool, of course, needs to be installed on a Windows machine, and now, of course, with the introduction of VMware, that the host is not always running Windows OS. So you still have the option, of course, on Hyper-V to install the application directly on the host itself, or if you wish, you can install on a dedicated machine or a different Windows machine, as long as that machine is in the same LAN as your virtual machine hosts, whether they're VMware or Hyper-V. So again, to make this a bit clearer, the first step is to download and install Altaro VM Backup on a Windows machine that is in the same network as the Hyper-V host or the VMware host itself. You can also install directly on a Hyper-V host, just as you did in version 5. Second step is to actually add your virtual machine host to the Altaro configuration, just as I showed you a few minutes ago. And once that's added, then you just simply select where to store your backups, and you can go ahead and start backing up immediately. So it's a really, really quick and easy setup, and we'll do everything everything you want to back up your virtual machines. So a couple of other improvements in the software have been two particular items. One is the tree view selection of the virtual machines, and I'm going to show you that in the software itself, as it's probably better for you guys to see. So as you can see with the backup locations, the schedules, retention policies, etc., all of these have been previously showing just a list of virtual machines. Now we've switched this to a tree view, which you can expand and contract, and you can actually select either the top level infrastructure or the entire Hyper-V host or your entire VMware host, for example, or even just individual virtual machines from within that tree view. So we've made this a lot more simple to use on scalable environments, and it's just a lot quicker and a lot easier to drag and drop items into the configuration with the tree view. Secondly, the Take Backup screen has also been modified to cater for both mixed environments and even for smaller, simple environments here. So again, you can see the tree view is actually acting as a filter here. So you can select a particular host and it will show you only the information for that particular host. Or you can select the entire infrastructure and it will give you the information for all the infrastructure. You might notice also that we've condensed the view in the Take Backup screen to a single line per VM, and of course this will allow you to list much more information on this screen than you did before. It also consolidates a lot of the information and makes it much easier to look at a glance. We've also grouped all of the virtual machines which have not been configured. So previously this screen would also be populated with all of the virtual machines that aren't configured to be backed up, and we've added a new section now which condenses all of these into a single group, which you can expand if you wish to see, or just leave hidden if you don't. So a few other things we've added since the original release of version 5. Now these of course were also available in the more recent versions of version 5. However, I would like to mention these for those of you who have not updated version 5 to the latest build yet. So first of all, since the original release of version 5 earlier this year, well, beginning of this year actually, we've released the host level concurrency, which will allow you to back up multiple virtual machines on different hosts at the same time. This of course allows you to use the bandwidth to the backup drive a lot more efficiently and get your backups done in a faster time. The new dashboard design is also something that we're quite happy with. In fact, you might have noticed this when I brought up the original software here. You can see that we now have added information such as the graphs and information about the backup drives. You can see we also show information about storage compression and the rates of data which you're saving on the backup drive, and also the transfer compression for off-site backups. You'll also see that we now list the upcoming tasks for the virtual machine backups, as well as the last backups which have already succeeded. We've also added really big improvements in the granular restores. Both file level and exchange item level restores are much more responsive now, and allowing you much faster access to retrieve files from previous backups. Lastly, we've also added a Get Help menu in the software. This time it's more of an ease of use and reaching out to our customers who actually need help with the software. You'll see in the Get Help menu there's a bunch of resources for you to actually contact our team or to get help with regards to any issues you might be having with the software. Firstly, you'll see we've built in the error reporter directly into the application now. You can generate an error report and submit it straight to our support team, and even upload the error report directly to our servers without having to email it over. This was becoming a bit of a nuisance for people who have larger error reports and larger environments. So this will allow you to automatically upload. There's no limitation on the size, so it should be easy for you guys to do. You can leave the ticket number blank and it'll create a new ticket, or if you already have an existing ticket, then just put the ticket number in and it'll attach to the same ticket. You also see that we have a live chat feature directly built into the software now. Now this is available throughout the application from the top right-hand side of the screen, and also in the Get Help menu within itself. Now you can see this automatically brings up live chat for you, so you can get in touch with our techs really easily, straight from within the application itself. It's really handy if you're having trouble either configuring or having problems with backups itself. One other thing I'd like to mention is the central monitoring console. You can see this screenshot of this on screen, and this will allow you now to monitor and get a quick at-a-glance view of multiple instances of Altaro VM backup which are running in your environment. So the actual upgrade process here. We've talked about all of the new features in V6, and the upgrade from V5 is really simple. It's a seamless upgrade. You simply download the version 6 installer, run it over the top of your version 5. All settings will be kept, the same license keys used, so it's really seamless. So anybody who's running version 5 can go ahead and upgrade. It's a really simple process. Regarding users with version 4, this has to be done in 2 steps. So the upgrade from version 4 to version 5, as some of you might already be familiar with, require a conversion of your settings and backups, and you can find information to do that on support.altaro.com. Once you're upgraded from version 4 to version 5, again, simply run v6 install over the top of version 5, and it's a seamless in-place upgrade from that point on. However, you do need to run the conversion from v4 to v5 before upgrading to v6. As for customers running version 3 and older, a fresh installation of v6 is required and a new backup set will be taken. There's no upgrade path from v3 directly to v6 or through v4 or v5. If you're using v3, you need to start a fresh installation and a new set of backups. Having said that, you'll still be able to restore the old versions of your backups of v3 using a process found in our knowledge base. You can go directly to altaro.com/upgrade v6 to get full instructions of how to proceed with your upgrade, whether you're running version 4 or version 5. Just head over to that website and you'll be able to see the exact instructions you need to upgrade. So as for the costs of the upgrade itself, if you have a valid software maintenance agreement, then as always, the upgrade is free of charge, and you don't need to do anything from your end if you have a valid contract. Simply go through the upgrade process detailed in the previous slide, and the upgrade is absolutely free. If you don't have an SMA or your SMA has expired, then you will need to renew that before you upgrade to v6. The cost of renewal is 25% of the purchase price for every year. Of course, the SMA includes upgrades as well as support, which is always available on our website. The prices of the software, so if you're purchasing a new license, everything has remained exactly the same as v5. We've kept the same prices, and hopefully that will be a really good incentive for everybody to go ahead and purchase the new version. We're also offering the same 3 editions which we had in version 5, so the free, standard, and unlimited editions will continue to be offered just as previous versions have. And if you're already using another backup application for VMware backup, then we are offering some competitive discounts to switch over to Altaro. So please feel free to contact sales@altaro.com if you're using a different backup vendor for VMware right now. Okay, so that brings me to the end of the information which I wanted to pass over to you guys today. And I want to go ahead and open up the floor for any queries that you guys may have. Again, please feel free to use the questions section in GoToWebinar, and I can go ahead and answer those. Or if you wish to unmute your microphones, then you can go ahead and do that, and you can speak on the voice. Okay, so we have a couple of questions coming in. The first is from Hugo, asking if there's any risk of data loss during of older backups with version 5 during the upgrade. The answer is absolutely not. The upgrade is a straight over-the-top upgrade. The backup data itself is no conversion required, so it's literally just like upgrading from a build of version 5 to a new build of version 5. And this is how we plan to continue, of course, doing upgrades from v5 along the way. So the next question here from Andreas, asking about the Hyper-V option for Exchange and SQL backups. He's asking whether or not the option in the VSS settings is necessary for backups of Exchange and SQL. And absolutely, this is not necessary. The options for the truncation of logs are only applying to VMware itself. In fact, if you have a look at the UI, the truncate logs option for virtual machines which are on Hyper-V is not configurable. We always do an application consistent backup by default of virtual machines in Hyper-V, and that means that the Exchange VSS writers and SQL VSS writers are going to be truncating the logs automatically for you with Hyper-V. However, with VMware, obviously VSS doesn't exist on the host itself, and we're using a snapshot option of VMware to do this. So we need to run the Altaro backup virtual machine tools inside the guests to do this. So another question from Adam asking if we're upgrading from V4 to V6 and we want to use a central management console, do we need to start from a new backup set? This is also described in the upgrade process, and it's exactly the same as from V4 to V5, so nothing has changed in that regard. And if you're switching to multiple host scenarios from V4 to V5 and then to V6, then you'll need to go through the upgrade guide just as you did with V5. However, from V5 to V6, there's no such changes. Another question here from Daniel asking if customers install SQL and Exchange on a single virtual machine, will that be okay for the truncation of logs? Yes, absolutely. The Altaro VM tools inside the guest VM will handle truncation of logs for both SQL and Exchange, even if they're on the same machine. Another question here from Hugo asking if we upgrade the truncate logs option, will have created without that option in V5, is there any risk? Well, Hugo, the new option for truncation of logs only applies to VMware, so version 5 did not actually back up VMware, so there's absolutely no way that this scenario can work out. So the truncate logs option is only for VMware hosts, so anything that's running on V5 would not actually show up the truncation logs option. The truncation of logs in version 6 for Hyper-V is exactly the same as version 5, and you do not need to enable this option for your Hyper-V virtual machines. So just to reiterate here, the option for truncation of logs should only be enabled on SQL and Exchange virtual machines running on VMware hosts, not on Hyper-V hosts. Okay, so it doesn't look like we have any further questions here, so we'll go ahead and wrap up the session. But if you do have any further queries that you think of, please go ahead and contact us. The details are on screen. You can always reach us via live chat or email or even on the phone if you like, and we're always happy to help. So go ahead and reach out if you have any other further queries, and we'll be happy to help you out.